Hi, I'm Reverend Barry Steiner Ball, and today with our interview for the Lenten season and Lenten program, What If, I'm with Ann Hammond in Clarksburg. And what makes Ann unique is that she has a history of substance abuse disorder.
Yes.
And she is currently in recovery for 11 years. But I want to talk to her and get her experience of what it's like to be on that side of the line. So, thank you for sharing with us.
Absolutely.
When did your addiction problems start?
I was around 17 when things got bad, and it started with prescription pills that were not prescribed to me,
Okay.
but in my teenage mind, it was okay to use them because they were a prescription. And it was at the height of the Oxy crisis, and I snorted OxyContin with friends, and before I knew it, I was a heroin addict because the Oxy became scarce and we moved on to heroin quickly.
How did, as a teenager, you get a hold of Oxys to snort?
They were readily available at the time. Many people were getting them as prescriptions, people who had been hurt on their jobs, and then their children would get a hold of them, or friends, things like that.
So from medicine cabinets.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And we've heard that, but everybody finds it hard to believe that a addiction problem can come from a parent, grandparents, aunt, uncles, medicine cabinet.
Yes, anywhere. My family didn't have that in the medicine cabinet, but my friends' families did, and friends of friends. You run into people who were not addicts, who then got prescribed the drugs and found themselves in a lifestyle that they had never experienced, and they would sell them in order to support their own habit.
What type things would you do to get the oxycodone? We'll stay on that part and then get to the heroin later, but I mean, was it just show up at a party, or were you having to find money to buy?
In the very beginning, it was just show up, and we were snorting them, and it quickly moved to using IV and onto heroin. Once I was deep in a heroin addiction, that led to committing crimes to get the money.
What was it like, what was going through your mind the first time you injected? I just cannot imagine what it's like as a person to
I cried.
Is that right? You did not want to do
it. There's a saying in the meetings that I attend now about using against your will. And I think that this disease takes over. And we're still inside. That girl that was raised by a wonderful, loving family was still inside of me, but my disease was taking over. And I was in tears the first time I used that way. And I knew that it was just the start and that things were going to get much worse.
But there was nothing that made any sense to get out of it?
No.
Well, you know, Nancy Reagan said, just say no. What does that do to a person whose mind has been taken over? I mean,
That it's not helpful at all. Unfortunately, it's not. Prevention is so important. If we can get kids to not use that first time, then we're ahead. But once the use has started, then just letting people know that there is help available is the key.
Mm-hmm. What was it like to want more? I can understand as a teenager if you have a party on Saturday and then the next Saturday there might be another party. But as that picks up and it's your desire for the drug is on Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday, what's going through your mind at that time?
Well, along with opiate use comes withdrawals. So it gets to a point where physically you cannot go without the drug. And there's no way to describe both the mental and physical experience of withdrawals. But I do tell people, imagine the worst flu you could have, multiply that by 100, and then imagine while you're going through this, you know that there's one small pill that you could go get that would fix it all.
And that's
That's where our minds go when we're in the midst of that.
What was it like did you know that heroin wasn't equal to the pills that you were taking? Or did you think, well, maybe this is something different? Or
Heroin seemed worse. At first, when I first snorted pills, I thought I would never use heroin. That just seemed so distant. That seemed so intense. Not a prescription. But as your disease progresses, and it progresses very quickly, as it progresses, that fades. That idea fades.
And it's easier to get.
Yes, much easier to get and less expensive.
If you don't mind, tell us what type of things you did to get the money to keep that habit going.
My first time getting in trouble, I had written bad checks in multiple counties off of a bank account that I had, and I wrote many checks. And that's where the warrants came from the first time. My family had no idea how to react, so they actually spoke with a consultant who said, let her sit in jail and detox. So they did, and I know that was probably the hardest thing they've done, but they made me stay in there to detox. Thank God they did. And when I got out, then they helped me with my legal issues and stepped up so that I didn't have to go to prison. And after that, I did go to treatment, and I was clean for a while, but I didn't have it. At the time, I was only 19, and I didn't have an understanding of never being able to drink at that time because I wasn't even of drinking age. So it didn't take long before I started drinking, and then after a few years of drinking, it led me back to the drugs again. And
that first time you used again, was part of your brain saying no, 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 or was the whole body? Yeah.
Absolutely. I had been away from it for quite a few years, and I ran into a guy who I'd gone to school with at a bar where I was drinking, and he had just gotten out of a program for young men, sort of a prison situation, and we started spending time together. Within a couple weeks, he was using heroin again. I was telling him that was awful, and I couldn't believe he was doing it, and within a couple more weeks, I was doing it with him.
Oh, good gracious.
So it all came back quickly.
I've heard people say that when one of those people is using drugs, they're just snubbing their nose at society and doing it to just blow off the family, the church, the community. But that's not what's going on inside of you at all.
No, I think we want desperately to connect, but we're just not able to. And I was never doing it in a way to snub my family or to punish my family. They were what kept me alive. And even the church family, I didn't attend church during that time, but I had been going to this church since I was born. So once you get clean, all those morals and values that you were raised with come back very quickly once you take the drugs away.
Right. What about the guilt? Is that weigh heavy on you? That's
what keeps many addicts using, the guilt and the shame. And Narcotics Anonymous is where I found recovery. And through the 12 steps, you learn to work through that guilt and shame. I won't say that it goes away, but you are able to work through it, get into a better place. For me, because I'm a recovery coach in my job, it's my profession to tell people that I'm in recovery. So I don't face the same stigma that some do. There are many people out there who are in recovery and living great lives, but they're not able to be vocal about it because of their jobs or their families or their churches, things like that. So I'm very fortunate that I can speak out to help break the stigma.
Did you feel judgment?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And that doesn't help at all. It doesn't push you towards sobriety at all.
No, not at all. The only place I felt comfortable was with my family. And I did feel comfortable here at church as well. But in society, going into court, dealing with probation officers, judges, I always felt judged, and I always felt looked down on because of my addiction. But I've been able to overcome that.
Did your family feel judged because of what you were going through?
I'm certain that they did, but they didn't let on to it to me. They have always made me feel that they were proud of me and my recovery. My grandfather has been my biggest support through and through. And he would never let on if anyone did look down on him for it.
You have a unique story in the sense that your family let you stay in jail.
Yes.
to detox.
Yes.
To forcefully get the drugs out of your system.
Yes.
If they hadn't have done that, or if you hadn't ended up in jail, would you probably be still using today?
I would probably be dead.
That is amazing. So detoxing is just getting the drugs out of your body.
That's
and
correct.
then begins a lifetime of rehabilitation.
That's right.
Once you get through that illness, and it's just easy. The sun comes up, the daisies come up, and rehab is easy.
No, no.
Tell us about what.
It takes a long time for our brains to heal, to even begin to heal. Would we, as we say, put the dope down and start the detox process, we get the drugs out of our system, our minds begin to clear. But it takes time, and it takes a lot of just living just for today. Just for today, I'm not going to use.
Mm-hmm.
And living day by day until you have the strength to say, just this week, I'm not going to use, or just this month. And now I'm a long way from using. It's been a long time, and I still have to be vigilant in my program. I still have to go to meetings, have a sponsor, work steps with that sponsor. And what I do for work definitely helps with that as well.
Well, let's talk about your work.
Okay,
You work for Help for West Virginia,
that's correct.
which is a what?
There's a helpline in the state of West Virginia. Anyone in the state can call 844-HELP-4WV. We can help with substance abuse and mental health issues. Anyone suffering with addiction, usually the first stop is detox, like we were talking about. The goal of the helpline is to get you into detox that day when you call. That's not always possible, but that's the goal. We cover the entire state of West Virginia. Most of the people answering the phones at the helplines are in recovery themselves. So they have been there and they've been through the experience, and they're now helping others. So they know when you call the helpline, you're not going to feel judged and you're not going to feel looked down upon, because it's someone that's been through it as well. So we get people into detox, and then we also refer to other levels of treatment. So usually after detox, we try to get someone into a 28-day program, and from there into 6 months or longer or sober living.
What is that? I hear about these shorter term rehabs. Are they valuable at all?
Absolutely. You go to detox for 7 to 10 days, and you're just getting the drugs out of your system and physically feeling a little better. A 28-day program or a shorter term program normally introduces you to meetings. Mm-hmm. They'll take you to meetings in the evening, which is such an important component, whether it's NA, AA, Celebrate Recovery, wherever someone finds their recovery. It's also keeping you in that protected environment for a while until your mind can clear and you can make the decision on what to do next.
Right. So, but after 28 days, after 6 months, there is still the danger of relapsing.
It's always there, and it always will be. And that's why we have to be vigilant in the programs that we work.
How can a church community help with that?
I think helping with breaking the stigma is a big thing. Being supportive of the families of the addicts who are going through it, whether they're raising their grandchildren, their great-grandchildren, or just need somebody to say a prayer for them in the evenings. Also, when you know someone is dealing with this, just realizing that it can be any family. It
Absolutely.
Can be any situation. Addiction knows no bounds. It knows no class, no ethnic group. Everyone is susceptible.
Did you receive support, or what could a church do while you're actively involved in your addiction? Mm-hmm. Is there something the church could do to help support you or help you move towards detoxing? Or
I think for anyone, not just churches, but when you're dealing with someone who's in active addiction, the best and only thing you can do is not enable them and let them know that help's available when they're ready. And that's having the helpline 844-HELP-4WV, jotting that number down, keeping it in your glove box, in your purse, on your fridge, so that if the situation arises and someone is ready to get help, you can give them that number and they can call and get it.
Could a family member call Help for West Virginia and get some support or some guidance or just a clearer thought?
Sure, family members are welcome to call. We can sort of explain to them how the process works. We can give them information on what is available out there. But we do have to speak to the individual before setting up treatment.
Sure. Yeah. Okay, so we're sitting in a beautiful sanctuary,
Yes.
like many churches have. But this is a unique church. This is United Methodist Temple in Clarksburg.
Yes.
And while the pews get filled up on Sunday, the pews are not where ministry happens here.
That's correct.
What all do you have going on in this one community in Clarksburg?
Temple has a number of community outreach programs. There's a food program on the weekends for children where we supply them with food.
Explain that, because most folks are familiar with the backpack programs that go to the school and then the school sends them home. But you all go another step, which is?
Yes, we actually take the bags of food to the children in the community. I believe it's around 140 children every week that we deliver the food to.
To their home?
Yes, Lynn Menendez, a member here, is in charge of that program, and she's done amazing outreach with that. We also have another member, his name is Wayne Worth. He started Neighbors in Action, and he goes door to door in communities and hands out information, including the helpline number, the helpline that I work for, the 844-HELP-FOR-WV. He includes that number on all his information and goes door to door and speaks to people and let them know that there is help available if they'd like to get it. And then we also recently have chosen to turn a building that the church inherited next door into a recovery house for women. So I'm working right now to raise the money to put a furnace in. It's never had a furnace before, so that's our big hurdle in getting this started. Once we open the doors, the house will focus on substance abuse treatment for these women through the 12 steps of whichever program they choose to work, NAAA, Celebrate Recovery. We'll also be unique in focusing on life skills, things like managing a bank account, what's a credit score, how to cook a meal, whatever that may be. And we hope to focus on women who have children that aren't with them right now and reuniting them and just helping them become better mothers.
And one question I keep hearing is, what does it take to open a recovery house? Do you have to have some sort of government license? Do you have to have somebody who's certified in something? What's required?
It's all dependent on what type of facility you're opening. A facility like what we're doing, there will not be a licensed therapist on staff. We've actually had some therapists volunteer to come in and do groups with the women, and the women will go to Summit Center, which is a behavioral health facility, to get their therapy there. We are just where they will live and the structure that they'll need to go to their therapy at Summit Center and things like that.
And before they come, they will have detoxed.
Correct. They will have detoxed and likely completed a 28-day program before they would come here.
Very good. That's fantastic. That's very exciting.
It's a great location because they're within walking distance of so many places to work and so many meetings. Mm-hmm. All of the meetings that I mentioned earlier are within walking distance.
And the congregation is supportive of this?
They've been very supportive, yes.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
What brings you joy now?
My son, he's 4 years old. He never has to know a mom who is actively using drugs. He never has to wonder if I will make him dinner or if I'll be home that night. He brings me the most joy. Seeing my family look at me with pride. All of those things. Helping others and seeing someone enter recovery for the first time and start to see that sparkle come back in their eyes.
I love the image you had that the child was in you. It just needs to be let out again.
Absolutely. We're still the same person that we were raised to be. It's just, we take a dark path for a while, but that person comes back quickly. Like I said, all those morals and values that I was raised with, they came back very quickly once I got clean. And that we're not all from a bad family or a bad situation. Many of us have had some sort of trauma that led to our addiction, that led us to seek out an escape, but it wasn't necessarily what people envision. Like I've said, I come from a loving family, both on my mother and father's side, wonderful family. They're still very supportive, big part of my life. Family vacations and good schools and all of that. I didn't have I don't have the sad childhood experience that people expect.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And it just shows that it can come into any family. It can happen to any of us.
What do you see as a successful way to do prevention? I read all these articles and, oh, this one doesn't work, this one doesn't work, this one doesn't work. What do you think are some ways that the church can be involved in prevention?
I think, of course, speaking honestly and openly about the problem and about what it can lead to and what their lives could be like if they make this wrong decision. I think, of course, that that's important. But I also, just like with recovery, I believe we need as many options as possible. So one child may absorb something one way and another may absorb it another way. So I think that our prevention specialists are doing a variety of programs, and I love that because I believe that everyone's different and everyone will take it in differently, so we don't know what may affect one child differently. And it's the same with recovering addicts. We need a variety of programs. They need to have options because what works for one may not work for another.
I want to thank Ann for giving us a gift of seeing into her life and what she has experienced while she was growing up in this church, when she got cut off from this church because of addiction, and how she has come back to this church like a prodigal daughter. And the church was there with open arms to receive you, and you helped us understand what it's like. It's very easy to sit in our pews and judge folks and think, well, they just should have said no. But it's much more than that, and it's much harder than just saying, I don't want to use today. So we thank you. There are many folks who are watching this, or who we know should be watching this, that need help, that need a place to start. And they can call
1-844-HELP4WV. There's also a website, Help for West Virginia. You can Google. You can also text that phone number as well.
And again, this information also is on the conference webpage, www.wvumc.org, under the What If tab.
And if anybody would like to help with the Women's Recovery House project that we have going on next door,
what could they do?
they could contact myself or the pastor here, Dustin McCune. We are raising money right now to install a furnace, also to replace some windows and get some bathroom and kitchen repaired. So anybody who would like to help us out, just let us know.
Very good. Thank you.